You're watching the Sporting Time Show with host Doug Thompson. Sponsored by Jewelry Barn and Pawn Shop.
Good evening and welcome into the Sporting Time Show. I am Doug Thompson. And again, alongside me this week is Taryn Johnson, the sports anchor for WNKY. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas.
Absolutely.
Did you enjoy your Christmas?
Oh, I had a fantastic time, Doug. It was great time spent with family, and you gotta love those holidays, being able to spend them with family.
Yeah, especially, this year. We had a much smaller Christmas this year, but I've got a 2.5-year-old grandson that was completely into it. So that was a lot of fun to watch him open up gifts, his own gifts, and then everybody else's gifts.
Oh.
So, he'll learn that. But really, Taryn, thanks again for joining me today. And,
Absolutely.
we're just coming off a 5A state championship over in Lexington at Kroger Field. You were there. And by the way, the Football Frenzy piece that you did for WNKY, I encourage everybody to go online to either WNKY's Facebook page or their website because, man, it was fantastic. It was spot on, well done. But it was a lot of fun, too.
Doug, I really appreciate you saying that. Football Frenzy has been an absolute blast, and following the Purple's postseason run especially has been such a treat, and it was great to see them win and end their season victoriously with that state title. Man, I get so excited talking about this team and talking about their success, and I guess that showed through Football Frenzy, but I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, Doug.
Well, last week you and I talked, and I went out on a limb, a big limb, not a limb that would break, but a big limb that I thought that they were going to win by 3 touchdowns. We almost got there.
You're close.
But,
you were close.
But really, the Purples dominated that match.
Yeah, Doug. Even in the first quarter, Owensboro was able to move the ball offensively. They had a couple good drives to start out the game, but it still seemed like they were just two different teams. They were just on two different levels. And this Bowling Green Purples defense, folks, the real deal. You don't need me to tell you that. But they were absolutely fantastic once again. And once they got settled down, once they got settled in and under the bright lights of Kroger Field, it was game over, Doug. It really was.
Well, you look at Connor Cooper and what he was able to do with his legs and even with his arm. Dingle, big touchdown, nice receptions. But the Purple defense was amazing. They had 13 interceptions going into the state championship game. But what about guys like Eli Burwash and Reese Jones? I mean, you just go down the line. They're so tough.
Honestly, like Eli Burwash was the MVP for me for this Bowling Green Purples team, Doug. Not only did he do it on defense, he had an interception and a forced fumble, but he did it in the punting game. He did it in special teams too. He had 7 punts on the afternoon, 3 down to inside the 20-yard line, with 1 down at the 3-yard line. Owensboro goes 3 and out, and then the Purples get the ball back on Owensboro's 23-yard line, which leads to the first touchdown of the game, which was Connor Cooper's 18-yard touchdown scramble. Such a key, special teams for Bowling Green was the key and the X factor to their win, in my opinion.
Yeah, and plus Burwash gets the onside kick.
That's right.
Scoops that thing up and cradles it. They never have an opportunity to get the ball back. Had they had a successful onside kick, then that could be a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing on the Purple side.
Absolutely. It would have made things interesting at the very least.
Right,
because you had
right.
Gavin Wimsatt finally start to get in a groove. Now, the Purples were playing back a little bit, Doug, but Wimsatt was finally getting in a groove and starting to rack up some passing yards, but that was a very key onside recovery for sure.
One of the conversations that I've had around the water cooler with mask on is the fact that I felt that the 2 best teams in the state in 5A, obviously Bowling Green, the number 1 team, but I think South Warren High School was the 2nd best team in 5A. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, Doug. I agree. And when you watch Bowling Green and South Warren's 2 games during the course of this 2020 season, they seemed equal. They seemed like they both had equal amounts of talent. Now, obviously, Bowling Green winds up, kind of blowing them out in round 2 of the playoffs, but that was not the case in this state championship game. They were just two on 2 completely different levels.
Yeah, and when you talk about the rivalry between South Warren and Bowling Green, whether it's regular season, postseason, whether they flip it, whatever it might be, they had 2 great teams across the line of scrimmage, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens down the road. But We're going to take a short break. When we come back, the head coach of the newly crowned 5A state championship Bowling Green Purples joins us right here on WNKY NBC 40. We'll be right back.
You're watching the Sporting Time Show on WNKY 40. And remember, like us on Facebook and follow ST on Twitter. For the athletes, for the game.
Welcome back to the show. Well, 2020 has been such an unusual year, but I tell you, a bright spot just happened this past weekend with the Bowling Green Purples winning the 5A state football championship. The head coach of the Purple joins me now, Coach Mark Spader. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Doug.
I know. It's just like a Groundhog Day with you, Coach. I mean, you know, we get to see you several times during the regular season. It's great to have you on today, and thank you for joining us on short notice. But, Coach, I went back and looked at Media Day, which seemed like a lifetime ago, looked at your comments, listened to your comments. Did you think then anything about getting to the state championship and playing in the 5A state championship, or just worrying about playing at all?
Really, at that point, there were too many question marks. We hadn't had much of a summer, and, you know, in our program, we're always thinking about a state championship, but it was more of, can we get on the field and practice and play some games, and let's see what kind of squad we're going to have. Visions of a state championship really didn't strike me till about mid-season, when we were really showing some improvement and guys were really stepping up. And then I began to say, you know what, we've got a chance here. You know, let's work our tails off and see what happens.
Yeah, and is it safe to say, Coach, that your team week in and week out just improved every single week?
They sure did. We just had our last team meeting, and we're looking at our players and reflecting back how much so many of them improved throughout the year. And that's just that measure of hard work, of coming in every day, and our coaches and our players, you know, getting on the practice field and working together. And that's become my favorite part of coaching anymore, is the practices during the week and the game planning. And our kids put the time in, and the proof's in the final. You know, from the first of the year to the end, I think we improved every day. And some of our kids are outstanding players now, and you really couldn't say that about them at the first of the year.
You know, this isn't your first rodeo. You've been to state championships before. As a head coach, though, what was it like the night before, and what did you kind of tell your team going into that week and going into that final state championship game?
Well, we had such a great week of practice leading up that it might have been as calm as I've ever been before a big game. That we enjoyed our time together that last week. We worked hard. Our coaches addressed our team. We usually have a character development period, and each of our coaches spoke to our team the last practice we had on Friday. And we have such a great group of men, and they shared their feelings with the team. I mean, we break down on family a lot, the word family, and this was just a tight team, cared a lot about each other. They're very unselfish. No one cared who got the accolades. They loved winning and loved being around each other. And I think COVID had a hand in that. We just appreciate the fact that we were able to be together and do things this year through what's been a crazy year in our nation.
Yeah, and, you know, watching your team, Coach, obviously Cooper and Dingle, I mean, offensively, a really, really solid year. Defensively, what a squad that you had. You know, those defensive backs, 13 interceptions, I think, in 3 games, not including the state championship game. But they just kind of flew around the field. They were so tough.
It starts up front. Our D-line was a place that we knew we were going to have to replace a lot of people. And, boy, what a unit they turned out to be. Yeah. Of course, you've got Reese Jones behind them, and he's the heart and soul of our defense. Yeah. And then our DBs, once again, they continue to work hard each week. And, you know, come playoff time, they were just ball hawks back there. So much like our team, it was a unit type thing. And, you know, I loved coaching them, and it's a whole lot of fun calling defenses on Friday with those guys out there on the field.
Well, we've got about 45 seconds left. This is the rapid round questions. Are you going to take a couple days off before the new year?
Of course I am. We are done here, and I'm going to rest. I'm exhausted.
Are you going to pick out some bling bling for the ring, the state championship ring?
Yes, we've already started. We'll shop, and we'll put together a nice ring to commemorate this crazy year.
Does the superintendent get a ring? Just curious.
He sure does. He does.
Well, much well-deserved, Coach. Have a fantastic new year. And thank you again for the accessibility of your program and coming on the Sporting Time show here. Really appreciate it. A bright spot in 2020. And again, have a super new year.
You as well. And I hope we add to everybody's Merry Christmas with our championship.
You absolutely did, except Owensboro. Thank you, Coach. You take care. All right, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, more of the Sporting Time show right here on WNKY NBC 40. Welcome back to the show. One of my all-time favorite student athletes has to be my next guest. She was one of our first guests in 2020, and it's just fitting that she is our final guest of 2020. I want to welcome into the show future WKU golfer, Faith Martin. Faith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Doug.
So here we are. You made it through your senior season. You got to play in the Leishman Buick State Golf Championship. You're headed to WKU as a golfer. All in all, really a pretty good year for you, wouldn't you say?
This year, honestly, I was just glad that we got the opportunity to play. I didn't finish in some tournaments as well as I'd wished, but still looking back, I have to be excited that we got to get the season finished.
When you finished the Leishman Buick and you finished 8th, I believe, 6th or 8th?
I think it was 6th.
6th, I'm sorry about that. I have that down here, but I never look at my notes. You finished 6th. That pretty much was the end of your high school career. What did you do? How did you turn your focus, or what did you do after you finished high school? Was it much different than what your regular routine is, preparing for WKU, or what has it been like for you since October?
I've just mainly tried to rest some because from March until October, I'm pretty much golfing almost every day, and we're going everywhere to play tournaments. So I took some time off and rested, but I'm still continuing to practice as much as I can outside and just take lessons and keep working hard.
Yeah, when do you get to go down to like a nice southern location to play a little golf? I know WKU has a really nice schedule where you get to go to some really nice places. But do you ever kind of sneak out and try to get down to Florida or North Carolina or somewhere where it might be a little bit warmer?
In March, I typically go down to Georgia, and we play some down there in the spring just to get a little warmer. But I still play up here in some tournaments around Bowling Green and Tennessee in the early spring. So it's a little warmer, but I'm looking forward to playing at Western where they go down to Florida in the spring.
So is there a specific part of your game, Faith, that you've been working on since October, or is it pretty much the same routine for you? Your short game, your putting, your mid irons, your driver. How do you practice?
It looks a little differently because obviously I'm not a huge fan of the cold, so I don't get outside as much as I should. But we have a little net set up in the garage, and I just try to fine-tune my swing in the winter because I don't like to really nitpick at it during the season. I like to just play by feel. But in the wintertime, in the off-season, I like to go to my lessons and go inside with a net and a mirror and just try to perfect the swing.
So, the PGA has been off for a few weeks, and I watch some of the LPGA when I get an opportunity, but I've been watching it frequently the last couple of weeks. Do you watch the LPGA and watch them and say to yourself, and I don't want to put you on a spot, but do you say to yourself, I can do that. I got that shot.
Sometimes I like to think that, but I'm sure it's a lot harder than it looks on the TV screen.
Yeah. Well, golf is not an easy sport. It's a very technical sport. And Faith, you know, since I think you started at the Leachman Buick in the 7th grade or 6th grade?
Yes, I think it was 6th grade.
6th grade. And they didn't have the finishes back then, but I know in the 8th grade, you finished in the top 20. You have had a great career. You still owe me a round of golf, you and your dad. You're going to have to give me strokes, right? How many strokes will you give me? One per hole?
I don't know.
Yeah, well, don't hedge your bet. But Faith, thank you very much for joining me today. You are such a great ambassador for high school sports, and obviously what you've done for high school golf has been incredible. Good luck on the hill, and can't wait to watch and see what you do as a WKU golfer. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Faith.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All righty. When we come back, it's going to be Taryn Johnson and me putting a bow on this year, this crazy year, and we're going to talk about some of the highlights. Stay tuned. More of the Sporting Times right here on WNKY NBC 40.
You're watching the Sporting Time Show on WNKY 40. And remember, like us on Facebook and follow ST on Twitter. For the athletes, for the game.
Welcome back to the show. I want to thank Coach Mark Spader and also Faith Martin for being our guest today. And, of course, Taryn Johnson right here to the right of me. Taryn, if 2020 couldn't be any more crazy than it has been, we are looking at the other side of a brand new year. Thank goodness.
Oh my gosh, no lie, Doug. 2020 has been so hectic, so stressful as far as the future of high school sports here in the state of Kentucky goes. You know, I'm glad we had all the sports and they all played out, but I'm looking forward to 2021. Hopefully it's a lot more back to normal.
Man, it has been a nail biter for the entire 2020 season, and we were able to get in the football media day, but basketball media day, when we usually have it, we had to kind of pump the brakes because the COVID outbreaks were so intense. We really didn't want to take any chances. So we're going to circle back around and do something special for basketball, but as you look back on 2020, and I know you got some great notes on some of the highlights in football, what were some of the takeaways for you as things that really stuck out in your mind?
Well, I think first off, Doug, and I know this may seem generic, may seem a little cliche, but just finishing the regular season and especially the playoffs, the postseason here in Kentucky for high school football is such a huge accomplishment, especially when you consider and when you remember at the end of the regular season, like 35 to 40% of the total games were getting canceled due to COVID-19 related issues. So just being able to finish not only the regular season, but obviously the playoffs as well is such a huge accomplishment and something I'm very thankful for because it would have looked a lot different and would have left a bad taste, at least in my mouth, if they weren't able to crown state champions in all 6 classes.
You know, one of the highlights for me was Faith Martin, who we had on today. The Leachman Buick GMC State Golf Championships she's participated in, I believe, since the 6th or 7th grade.
Wow.
As an 8th grader, she finished 16th in the state of Kentucky. She had 3 top 10 finishes her sophomore, junior, and senior year. Her freshman year, she had a DQ because she was right at the top, but there was a scoring mishap there. It happens. But you think about Faith Martin and all that she has meant to high school golf over the years. She finally graduates this year. She's headed to the Hill. She'll be a WKU golfer. You look at Greenwood boys, they finished 4th in the state in team golf. South Warren girls, state runner-ups in golf. We're talking about Warren County Bowling Green, just how great they are in sports and how accomplished they are at a lot of different sports, including football, and some of the new things like Warren East, for instance, you had mentioned, what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. Warren East winning their first ever road playoff game in that round 1 matchup. Against Russell County. And not even just like a slight win. They won 33-14. They won by 3 scores. Nolan Ford accounting for 5 total touchdowns on the night. That was a fantastic thing to see. And not necessarily that you have any rooting interest, at least as a sports anchor and a sports broadcaster here in the area, but you just root for the storylines.
Right.
And Warren East certainly was that this year. They were a lot of fun to watch. And you know, the postseason run ended in round 2 against ACS, but at least winning that first playoff game on the road is a remarkable accomplishment.
Well, especially when you take out the number 1 seed.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Coach Griff needs, or Coach Hood needs to send Coach Griff maybe a box of chocolates for the new year, right?
That's right.
I mean, he took out a big-time number 1 seed. You know, some of the other highlights, you look at what the Whitting Hills have done as a coaching team for Greenwood girls volleyball. I mean, Alan Whitting Hill and his wife have been a part of that fabric for years and years and years. They just continue to keep on keeping on. So, I mean, again, these are teams right out of our area, right out of the 4th region, 14th district, that really have success at a very high level.
Yeah, and you mentioned the talent. This is a very talent-rich area, and I'm not sure that it's ever been as present as it is right now. You know, you go to the Gridiron, you have Janston Dunn, a 4-star wide receiver who is going to be headed up to Columbus in a couple weeks to play for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And then obviously Jordan Dingle, you know, Bowling Green's tight end and even a defensive lineman, had a sack in that state title game. He's headed to UK, scored a touchdown at Kroger Field where he will play his next at least 3 years of college ball. And then guys like Caden Veldkamp, who will be back for another fall, as hard as that is to believe.
I know.
But you have guys like Veldkamp who are getting serious looks at Power 5 programs at the next level. So especially on the Gridiron, but you mentioned all the other sports as well. You know, this is a very talent-rich area and very competitive as far as the athletes in high school that we have here.
Well, it has been a fantastic year this year for sports as far as we can take it, and we want to wish everybody a happy new year. Thank you to the WNKY staff for everything they have done. For Doug Thompson and Taryn Johnson, happy new year. We'll see you next Saturday night.